Crank it up. Good afternoon. Just kidding. There you go. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the Energy Subcommittee of the House Energy, Public Utilities, and Telecommunication Committee to order this afternoon. And you're taking our roll for us. We're going to dispense, without objection, we'll dispense with the roll call. We do have a quorum. We have two measures to act upon this afternoon. House Bill 92 and House Bill 78 by substitute. We're going to go with House Bill 92 first because that author is here. We would be in a position, if the committee so desires, to take action on this after the presentation, public discussion, and any questions are answered. Representative Gaines.
About the House Page program this afternoon. Good to see Speaker Burns has joined our meeting, and they thought I was a page. That's right. I still get confused, but thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill should be something most members of this committee have heard several times before. It's passed out of this committee and the full committee and the full House twice before in 2020 and 2021 with the same language, with nearly unanimous support on the House floor. It simply got held up in the Senate, but it raises a 20-year-old cap on how much EMCs can invest or obligate to a gas marketer that it owns. This cap was put in again 20 years ago as a precaution when the industry was first deregulated. Since then, there's broad competition with several gas marketers, including 4 EMC-owned gas marketers. They're highly successful. Raising the cap to 30% will simply allow our Georgia-based gas marketers to continue to grow and be competitive and successful. Want to, open it up certainly for any questions. Josh Mackey is here, who's very familiar with this legislation. Sounds like he's out of breath, been running across the Capitol. Maybe wet. Is it still raining? I don't know. Yep. He's running so fast he didn't even get wet from the rain. But representing Gas South, and I'm just, I don't know if there's anything, if you can speak, that you want to say, or we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, appreciate it. I know we've had this bill in front of this committee before. We appreciate the previous positive vote and consideration. Happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Does the committee have any questions? Josh, Mr. Mackey, I have a couple.
Sure.
It won't come as a surprise. This gives some pause to me, so I just want to ask the questions regards this. I mean, we talk about 20 years ago, the cap. What was the What was the approximate cap of property, plant, and equipment for Cobb EMC in 2002?
I don't know in 2002. I know currently at the 15% cap, that's approximately, I believe, $100 million.
You'd agree that's substantially more than it probably would have been in 2002.
I don't know because I don't know the exact figure. I'm sure it is more, and it has gone up.
Okay, well, I just want to get to the point as far as the objection. The reason I've done a little research in even the last week or so from previous years. The reason it was put in as a percentage and not as a finite number was to allow for that growth. But that's fair. I mean, that's a policy decision. So if the cap is raised to 30%, that's going to allow Cobb EMC to obligate their members to up to $200 million to Gas South for the purposes of whatever they want to do, acquisition and otherwise. That's going to allow that to happen. What is on the ground to the Cobb EMC member, the notification process, and what action does the board have to take to actually make that allotment?
I wouldn't say there's anything formal. I think there is discussion about Gas South activities consistently to members in the annual report and at the annual meeting of EMC members, whether it is any growth acquisition that they do. I don't think there's maybe a consistent update in regards to what the percentage is to members, if that's what you're
Well,
asking.
just in the tell me about the past. In the past, the process when at 15%, when monies were allocated to Gas South for whatever purposes, and
Sure.
you can go back on the top of the second page is what the purposes that are allowed for: investments, loan, guarantee, and such investment. So in the past, when did the did the Cobb EMC members realize this happened, that their capital was being obligated to a market risk enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's discussed openly. It's not something that members are unaware of. I think the relationship between Gas South and Cobb EMC is very known to the EMC members and what they're doing, and that, it's a wholly owned subsidiary. And so that, yeah, there is some potential market risk there. But it's also a massive market success. It's really been a great benefit to Cobb EMC. I think the 4 different EMCs that have gas marketers, those have all been net positive in terms of the rates and the money paid back to the EMC by those gas marketers. So I think they're more than aware of it. In addition, I think they're also aware through their rates every year how good of a relationship it is.
Well, yeah, thank you for that. That leads me into the next question. Should this happen at 15% for $100 million or at 30% for $200 million, and a acquisition takes place, and for some reason something goes wrong in the market with that acquisition has to be written down from $200 million to $100 million? Who does that loss fall
on? I would assume, I'm not a CFO corporate expert, and I think it also depends on the negotiations you have in an acquisition and what you have in terms of negotiation with banks and those that you raise capital from. I think it would immediately fall upon Gas South itself. So I think it would just depend on the situation.
Well, the whole, is it not true that the whole purpose of this is that you're giving the Cobb EMC, I'll wait if Roast of Games, if you're going to have somebody with maybe the financial background at
Sure.
the EMC, I'll ask the question of that.
Yeah.
I'll ask them so we won't belabor the point. We had a couple of other questions. I don't know what order they came in.
We can bring
so
up
I'm gonna-
either Ashley Jenkins or Freddie Cardozo.
Yeah, and we'll get to that. Let me see if there are other questions
Sure.
of the gentleman that are here. Representative Meeks, Chairman Meeks.
I just have one question. Representative Gaines or either Josh, is Gas South regulated by the Public Service Commission?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, all gas marketers are.
Thank you so much for your presentation. So I am new to this committee, and I apologize if this was discussed in prior meetings. Just wondering, will there be an impact to the consumer, and if so, what would it be?
I don't think there'll be necessarily a direct impact to the consumer. I will tell you that the impact, I do think allowing Gas South to grow, they've been a great success story over the last 17 years. Bringing affordable gas rates, I think the better that they can do, I think the better general consumers can do. Again, they also have a long history of passing, how successful they are, that money back to Cobb EMC to help lower the rates for the EMC. So I think general consumers can win, and I think the Cobb EMC members are winning too.
Thank you.
Further question? Number one over there. Is this Chairman Camp?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question relates back to the mechanics of it. I mean, it's a board, correct? Cobb EMC has a board that controls
Yeah,
them,
our EMC has a board of directors in addition to Gas South has its own separate board too.
who are elected by the members.
Correct.
I'm a member of 2 EMCs, so I'm a little bit familiar with this
Yeah.
aspect. But there's nothing saying that that anybody has to go to 30%. It's just available capital, correct?
Yes.
All right, that's my clarification.
And we are not even at the 15% yet. A couple of years ago, we originally brought this bill. We were trying to be proactive, both in that, Gas South does want to grow as a company. In addition, if you go back in 4 or 5 years ago, we had much lower gas prices in natural gas and general gas across the board. We came proactively saying, hey, we think this cap will be an issue for us. We are growing, getting closer to the cap. We're not there yet, but that's why we've come back this year thinking, hey, some of the market conditions that we expected to happen have taken place. It'd be good if we could look at raising this cap again.
Okay, so just follow up. So any financial decisions made by any EMC is done by the board of directors, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions of these two gentlemen, then we'll ask. When I do invite someone with the Cobb EMC with a financial background for an answer a question, then we'll take testimony. Any further questions? If not, we'll excuse you guys at this time. Representative Gaines, we'll of course call you back up to finish.
Thank you very
complete
much.
This. If you can introduce us to who might be able to field that last question.
Freddie Cardosa.
Okay, Mr. Cardosa. Just for the record, I mean, he just introduced you, but tell us you are and your position at either EMC or the.
Yes, I'm Freddie Cardoso again. I'm Chief Supply and Risk Officer for Gas South.
Okay, thank you. So my question was, since this is a guarantee, I mean, and nobody, it's like one of the boxers said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the mouth, right?
Yes.
Nobody expects this to go bad, but if Gas South were to take this to be guaranteed by Cobb EMC, but do a $200 million acquisition, something goes wrong. The Biden administration decides nobody can have gas anymore, or something. Whatever goes wrong, and you have to take a $100 million write down or $150 million write down. Obviously, I mean, what are you at liberty to say? I mean, what does the balance sheet look like at Gas South? I mean, can they take a $150 million write off and still pay the bills?
Right now, I would say yes, we would be able to withstand such a loss. And as it was well pointed out before, our ask is for the cap, for the limit to be raised. It doesn't mean that we necessarily are going to use entirely that capacity. But the main thing for us is that market conditions change a lot, and gas prices are very volatile. So right now, the 15% limit that we have is sufficient to run operations. We have been able to successfully grow the business and provide a lot of value for Cobb EMC members in the form of lower rates, to Georgia customers in the form of competitive natural gas rates and all that. And we have grown our business successfully. But gas prices are volatile. Weather conditions are also volatile, like Winter Storm Elliott that we saw at the end of last year. It demanded a lot of gas to be purchased, so we need things like working capital, the amount of money that we need on a revolving basis to be able to pay our bills before we collect from our customers. So those things fluctuate with the market and with the weather. So for us, it's an important factor that we have access to capital to withstand those.
Okay, so to follow up with that question, though, if you need access to working capital to buy gas for $150 million, then it kind of goes contra to the statement that if you had to write $150 million off your balance sheet, you could do it without affecting the customers at Cobb EMC.
Well,
if you had the
right,
money, you wouldn't
yeah.
need the credit line.
Well, we use the credit line in addition. We use the credit lines that we have established as Gas South in addition to per annual guarantees. So we use a combination of those for our company needs and all that.
Okay. Fair, I'm not going to belabor the point. I have great pause with the taking captive capital from captive customers that have to do business with Cobb EMC, put it in a risk model. But that's just my opinion. So I won't belabor that. But you're representing to us today that this is for the purpose of ongoing operations in gas. Have you guys not in the past taken this money and used it for straight up capital acquisitions?
We have, yes, we have
Okay.
had acquisitions.
I think
yes.
that's an important thing to realize. We talk about gas acquisitions where you get paid on a 30-day cycle, but what my concern is you take all the money you have, that you have available to buy a company, and then you go get $200 million out of Cobb EMC, and if it goes bad, to the lady's great comment, the Cobb EMC customer has no. They have no place else to go. They have to buy their electrons from Cobb EMC. So that gives me pause again. That's where my pause is. I won't belabor it if nobody else has that. Did anyone have any questions? Any further questions of the gentleman? Okay. Thank you very much. I want to ask the PSC. I don't want to say you're excused, but we don't need it. If you'd like to take your seat, that'd be fine. I do. Is there anyone from the PSC here? If either one of y'all could come to the microphone, I just want to make sure I clear up something, because I may have actually learned. Well, I always learn something, but I may have learned something I really didn't know today. Can you just identify yourself for the?
Reese McAllister, Executive Director at the Public Service Commission.
Tom Kraus, Legislative Liaison, Public Service Commission.
Mine is just simple. I wasn't under the impression that you guys had regulatory authority over the marketers other than, okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just
Don't
clear-
expand on, tell
yeah.
me what that is.
Well,
Tell me what.
Not being
regula-
an attorney, but we don't have total regulatory authority. We don't regulate their rates. It's a deregulated market under the Deregulation Act. And we do marketer terms and conditions. We approve their terms and conditions. We handle complaints and those kind of things. But they're not regulated per se. Like we certify them. We give them a certificate of public convenience and necessity, I believe. So we don't regulate them.
And per se, I'm sorry, did you have something, Tom?
I was just going to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, Reese, but the certification does include a financial audit, so to speak.
Okay.
It makes sure they're financially viable.
Okay, and the same thing, just if you can, very briefly, so we can move along on Thursday afternoon. But in your authority over the EMCs is, in a quick nutshell, we have some members of the committee that haven't been with us before.
Pretty much for EMCs, they're member owned, so they're not regulated either. What we approve on them are their loan applications. Those are some things that we approve, and some customer service we help with, but we just refer them to the EMCs for those kind of functions.
Thank you very much. Anyone have Chairman Dickey?
And to that point, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Cobb EMC is member-owned, has a member-elected board that do delve and member-hired of staff that do know the finances very closely of their EMC and make those decisions that's best for their member owners for Cobb EMC. So I think if they're asking for this change, I think they're more aware of what's best for their customers, their owners, than most any of us. So thank you. Just point to our committee what I wanted to say.
Yes, sir. Any further questions? I'm sorry. Any further questions of the gentleman? Questions? Committee got questions? Anybody else? I'm going to go to the public. Do we have anyone? Thank you, gentlemen.
No, thank
Did
you,
we
sir.
have anyone that wished to speak to this for? I don't know that we had a sign-up sheet. We didn't. But so I'll just do the old municipal public hearing call and say, is there anyone for it? Is there anyone against it, or is there anyone that's not sure that just wants to speak to us this afternoon? We don't want anybody to feel chilled about making a comment. Sometimes people just wanted to say something and they didn't know if they were for it or against it. They just had a question/comment. Anyone that wishes to speak to this item, House Bill 92. House Bill 92. This is the only change is on line 14, where it goes from 15 to 30%. Anybody wish to speak to it? If not, Representative Gaines, you want to give us any final words of wisdom?
Well, I just ask for committee's favorable consideration. I think Chairman Dickey's point is well taken that you have a board that is focused on the success of the company and making sure rates are low for consumers. And I believe this bill, also makes the marketplace more fair for the 4 EMC owned. I know you've talked about Cobb EMC, but there are 4 EMC owned marketers across the state, and I think this levels the playing field with them and their competition. So I think it's a good bill, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. And just the last question, if I could, I haven't heard from any of the other 3. Are you aware that any of them are supportive, or they're just
Georgia
they're
EMC
neutral?
in general has written a letter of support, which represents all the EMCs across the state.
But the 3, the ones that have gas marketers, they don't have a.
But they're represented by Georgia EMC, and they've all of the EMCs through Georgia EMC has given its support.
Okay. I'm not trying to, but nobody else is looking for the 30, but they're not opposed to having the 30.
Well, they're supportive of it.
Fair enough. All right. The last question. There was a sort of a dust up in Cobb County a few years ago. It had nothing to do with this. Correct. Just to make
my understanding is
clear.
it did not. That's right.
I still have, like I say, some reservation, but to be clear, the thing that went on with the Cobb EMC board had nothing to do with this particular.
That's correct.
This particular percentage and so forth for the subcommittee. Thank you very much. If there's nothing further, we have before us House Bill 92 as it was originally introduced, LC 365373. House Bill 92, LC 365373. We will take. I will make this available for action today. So at this time, I'd ask, what's the pleasure of the subcommittee in regard to this item? I'm sorry. Did we have a question?
No, I've moved the
motion.
motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Representative Thomas. I have a second by Chairman Dickey. Is there discussion? Discussion on the motion? Discussion on the motion. Hearing no discussion, I'll close off. I'm not going to shy away from it. This gives me severe pause for the customers at Cobb EMC, but I will not. I've always said down here, I will not, allow one person chair or otherwise to hold up a measure because if the will of the committee is to move it forward. So I still have reservations as the representatives have been good to work with me on it, but we'll move forward with that. If there's no further discussion, yes, sir.
Let me just put something in here.
Yeah.
I know that you have reservations. We have had this bill through this subcommittee and back through this full committee now, I think 3 times. With a different version of it, but we passed it out of the committee. We've actually passed I think the same percentage last year, and I'm not gonna sit here and advocate for or against it, but I would just like to remind everybody this is a policy decision to make this as clear as I can without being, but it's to allow these people to make a policy decision, to allow them to make a business decision that is based on decision by that company and the board of directors. That's what it really amounts to. And here again, I'm not saying vote for it, vote against or anything like that, but it is a policy decision we're making. We're not the ones that have the business acumen about what happens in that business. It would seem to me, and I'm
Fair enough.
trying to say this clearly, as evenly as I can without saying vote for it or against it. But with that, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir. And mine is not to try to convince anybody to vote otherwise, but just I've been clear in my reservation for those years, and so we have it before us.
Chairman, I just got a quick question.
We'll,
If it's still,
we're still in discussion. Yes, sir.
So, and it's just, I'm supportive of the concept. Just a quick question. It might have been addressed, but what is the net utility plant value right now for Cobb Gas South?
What they've represented, if I'm wrong, without having them come back up, they've represented that 15% represents about $100 million. So if you do the math, you're talking about 660, $670 million is their total of their property, plant, and equipment. And so, 30% would be approximately $200 million. Any further discussion? We have a discussion. The motion is to move. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. If I understand this right, we're moving the percentage from 15 to 30 so that the business has wiggle room, a pad just in case the volatility of the market.
Correct me again, if I'm going to assume you direct that to the chair. Since we're in discussion, we can't really go back to you guys at this point, but I'll look to them if I misstate this. Cobb ENC has a big balance sheet, and as such, they can provide this guarantee of this credit so that their subsidiary, wholly owned subsidiary, I'm correct in saying that, would have access to $200 million to buy gas early, to buy another, to buy acquisitions. They could, if they so choose. I don't think they'll go that route, but they could get into the storage business. That's typically done by the regulated gas utility. But this gives them, it's a bigger balance sheet that Cobb EMC has than a gas marketer, because a gas marketer really doesn't have property, plant, and equipment. They're just marketing things. They're buying gas over here and selling it over here. And so against your furniture in your office is really your assets, and you can't borrow that. So yeah. Well, I know, but I mean, you don't have $600 million worth of assets is what I'm getting at. Yes. Does that answer your question?
It does. It just seems like, we don't do this for other businesses, like this kind of we don't do legislation for businesses to.
No, and yeah, to go further than that, private businesses. Hang on a second, because we're in just only because the rest of the game, because we're in motion. Other businesses, private businesses, wouldn't have any limitation. The reason this was limited is because they do have captive customers, and so that's the reason it was. But so.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the reason it is. So. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I've been wanting to ask this question from the beginning, but being a rookie, I didn't know how to push the button.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So I may be late, but I'm still going to ask.
Yes, sir.
I keep hearing 30%. How did you arrive at that? And I see it was 15 at some point, and now it's going to 30. I don't know how long ago it was 16. I mean, it was 15. I guess I'm asking so that we can address the issue with longevity.
Yes, sir. To answer your question, I believe Chairman Parsons addressed it. It had gone through, and had been a discussion between people, quite frankly, like myself, that have paused with putting customers at risk, balance that with the needs of them to expand, and I believe that's a number that lets them, move for expansion, but still protects the Cobb EMC customer. So I think it's a good medium. If you will, if compromise is defined as nobody gets exactly what they want, I think this is a compromise. So, Chairman Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to, isn't it true that all businesses, including this business, has a board of, well, not all businesses, but EMCs have a board of directors that do require approval for any financial expenditures. So even though they have a 30%, they don't have to use all that 30%. It's just capital. That's all this bill is doing, correct?
That's my understanding, and that's the reason I asked earlier that this allows them to do it, and I was interested in the process of them, and they have to. I understand that they would have to have an action by the board. Mm-hmm. My further understanding is that they would, those minutes are public and those meetings are public, and that the consumers, the captive customers, would also know about it.
Correct. And further, isn't it true that all those board of directors for each of the multiple EMCs that exist in the state are member elected in an open election?
I'm sure that's true. I haven't read all of their bylaws, but I believe that it's probably true.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Some of them may be appointed by some regional development authority, but I think for the most part they're all elected.
Thank you.
One more. Last one, or if we can. Yes, sir.
So I'm a Cobb EMC customer, and my board of directors just went through, my member just went through the re-election. I mean, it was contested, and it was actually kind of ugly, and most of my neighbors didn't even know we elected the board members. They just thought it was a private corporation. So to say the members elect the board, 90% of my neighbors didn't even know they elected their board members. So, and most board members on Cobb EMC, from my understanding, have been there a while.
No further discussion. We have before us a motion to approve. We have a motion to pass motion for House Bill 92 LC 365373. Having had discussion, what's the pleasure? I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. No. Motion passes. Moves forward to full committee with a do pass recommendation. 2 noes. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now go to House Bill 73, LC 365433S. You have this substitute on you should have your substitute on your package. Oh, sure. If you would do that. This is offered by the representative. Shumry, do we need a name on the? Substitute? Somebody needs to offer it.
If the committee picks it out,
it'll come out by comments. Okay. Okay. All right. So I just clarify that this is, you have HB 73 LC 365433. This is a substitute to the original bill that the gentleman is going to explain. If we adopt this and move this forward as a do pass recommendation, it would come out as a committee sub from Chairman Parsons' Energy Committee. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yep. So LC 365433S, and what this measure does is addresses an issue that I bet every member on this committee has constituents who've had issues with some bad actors in the solar panel installation space. As you'll see in those packets, if you want to flip through those, as they pass around, there have been numerous reports and news investigations of just putting some spotlight on how bad some of those situations are. If you ask your power companies and EMCs about the size and scope of the issue, they'll tell you that they've been dealing with numerous complaints. Oftentimes, some of the sellers will sell as if they are either endorsed or a member of an EMC. and that just causes the EMC problems. It causes the power company problems. Really causes the customer, our constituents, problems. And I want to stress that not all companies are bad. This is not like, this is not a broad brush. Hey, this is all companies are bad. This is not the case. The industries, I've worked with them. I tried to work with them. I think they'll tell you that I've been as transparent as I could be about it. But a lack of policing from within has kind of brought forth this legislation. So what this legislation does is it kind of is broken into three parts. First part is probably the part that's going to get the most attention from the industry themselves. Is it puts the PSC under a COA of it puts the solar companies under a COA of the PSC. So COA means Certificate of Authority. So the PSC would grant the Certificate of Authority for these solar installation companies to do business here in Georgia. There are a number of parts of, if you go to part line 47, that section right there, that's where the COA stuff begins. But basically, the commission has authority to grant multiple COAs, and they're the ones who, as of December 31st, if this goes into effect, that would be when the rules and regs are ready to go, accepting applications, and hopefully sooner than that even. And what they're going to do is they're going to require background checks of the employees or contractors who are going to go to the houses to be on the buyer's premises. Provide contact information that is reasonably accessible by the public. They're going to possess adequate capital, or analyze if they have possessed adequate capital, and that they're financially viable. And they're going to meet any other requirements that the commission may deem appropriate without imposing barriers to the market. So what we're not trying to do, or what I'm not trying to do, is shut down solar installations in Georgia. That's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure that the bad actors are cut out of the market, and that the good actors have a great field day, make a lot of money out there in this world. And then it goes on as we continue. The next page talks about the commission has 60 days to issue an order approving or disapproving application, and that's unless they want a hearing. So there's no hearing mandated when you do a completed application to PSC for your COA. There's no hearing that's mandated in the law. But if you request a hearing, or if a complainant requests a hearing, then they have the first 30 days of that 60 days. They have to let the PSC know. The PSC has 60 days to have a hearing, and then another 30 days to actually issue a ruling or decision on that order. And then if there are bad actors in the space who actually get one, the PSC can remove their COA so they can put them out of business, which is really the whole goal here. We have, the bad actors typically aren't Georgia businesses. They are people, sometimes they are, but they're people who come in from out of state. They make these sales. And if you go through this report, I have a number of people in my district who have, there's a lady who has a pretty small trailer on her property. She has the biggest solar panel system you can install it on a trailer. $75,000 roughly. She doesn't speak English. The contract was in English. There's just a lot of bad actors that I don't want to say pretend that the industry is horrible. It's not. But the bad actors are really bad, and they're causing our constituents a lot of grief. I've spoken with the PSC about what this looks like for them. Can they handle it? They absolutely can handle it. They believe that this is the space this would need to go in, because they're already in this business anyways, as far as understanding energy. We have looked at other places to put it. It just doesn't really work out. We've looked at putting it under a commission, like the Real Estate Commission under Secretary of State. There's just not enough sales like there are for homes to do that, to make that work from a number wise. AG's office, AG can already kind of go after these bad actors. They just unfortunately have a lot of other priorities, and they're just overworked in that space. If you put them there, they're already allowed, they could already take on these folks. It's just not happening. They would need resources, probably lawyers. I think the PSC, this just happens to fit best for them. And then if we continue on line 107, that starts really what I think is part 2 of this. This is a disclosure that the sellers would give to the customer. It's a number of items there, and we passed this out of subcommittee last year. The disclosure just gives all the information that the company or the sellers comes up with a calculation to say, hey, this actually makes sense for you. Here's how we came up with how your cost savings are going to be there. Here's how we came up with the size of your system. Here's how long you can rescind this contract. Here's here's the tax credits. Either the company's going to get the tax credits if we lease it to you, or you're going to get the tax credits if you purchase it. Here's the information of our company, things like that. I think the good actors probably already do something like this, but this is just a requirement that they do it and they give it to the customer, and that goes all the way really through line 249. It starts really what I think is part 3. This came from Representative Thomas. Similarly, the idea is kind of cooked in there. It's where they publish on the website, the PSC website, a video kind of explaining what solar is from a residential standpoint, solar awareness presentation, that PSC would work in conjunction with the actual solar partners, the people who make these cells, so that they come up with a good informative video for people interested in buying this, so they know what they're getting into, know what the state laws are, and they can make an informed decision that's good for them. And so that really goes into the last part. So 270 is just saying that starts where basically if you don't provide the disclosure, that's a civil, you can be liable for a civil penalty to the person. And then 291 just says what provisions this article doesn't apply to. That's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to deep dive. If people have questions, we can do that. Additionally, though, there's a summary almost of this. If you haven't seen these yet, there's a summary page. It looks like this. It's a spreadsheet-looking thing. It tells you the location and just some of the comments related to some of the bad actors who've really been predatory to some of the customers that they have. And then additionally, you'll see a thing of checks there. So what's going on is sometimes, a lot of times, the bad actors will sell this by saying, you install this, your power bill will go away. And that's just not a reality. And what they're doing is, in order to make their power bill go away, that company will pay their power bill for them. These are checks, and I have these are checks that were submitted to an EMC in my area that paid for people's power for a year or 2 years, depending on what they decided to do, and then they stopped paying. So I've installed this solar. I was told I wasn't going to have a payment. I was going to wipe out my energy costs. My energy costs have been wiped out a year or 2 years. This company's gone. All of a sudden, my power bill shows up, and I'm really upset with my MC. Hey, why are you sending me a bill I haven't paid in 2 years when I got my solar installed? And that's kind of the smoke and mirrors that we're kind of dealing with. Again, I think the PSC is really the right place for these to be regulated by. Just again to get the bad actors out of there. We don't want to close up shop. That's not what we're trying to do. This is really just to keep the good people having tons of business and the bad people out of Georgia. That's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You have a couple.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't know which one to press the button.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
Just yesterday, we were in a committee meeting and we were talking about background checks and the different type of background checks. And so I'm wondering on line 61 where it says require appropriate background checks.
Yeah.
Are you referencing commercial background checks? Or
You're talking about banks and banking, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be up to the rules and regs of the PSC. I don't state in here which kind of background check it is. I think what the PSC is going to be looking for as a regulatory body is this, are there a ton of complaints about this company? Are there lawsuits related to this company about not upholding the end of the contracts? Are there fiduciary problems that are out there from, can this company pay to continue to upkeep these if there's warranty issues, that type of thing. But the background check actually, so you're talking about actually from the employees on the premises. I think that's a criminal background check. It's only criminal. I don't know if they're going to look across the country in a commercial one. I doubt it. It seems like a criminal background check, GCIC type of thing.
Would be sufficient.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Representative. I just want to be clear. Who's going to police this thing? If we got violations, where do they go? What's the process? Is it quick? Is it easy? Kind of on page 12, I think you go through there. And I just want to be clear. It's a good bill. I appreciate you bringing it, but I want to make sure when those bad actors are acting bad, that there's some good, easy recourse for consumers.
Right.
It's not drawn out. They don't have to hire an attorney.
Right.
Hopefully, and that sort of thing. And then starting in line 292, right below on that same page, who it shall not apply to. Could you go in a little more detail?
Sure. I'll start with your first part. So your first part's really only the civil piece if they don't give you your disclosures. So that's more of a lawyer type thing. Hey, I bought the system. I didn't get the disclosure. I think you could probably do a complaint to if the PSC is a regulated body of this. You could do a complaint to them, say, hey, I didn't get my disclosure. But the civil piece is going to be a courtroom, probably a lawyer, or it's a low amount. So maybe it's magistrate where you don't need a lawyer or something. But the actual regulator would be the PSC. So when you have a PSC complaint, just like you do for other entities that PSC regulates, you would surely have a website. You have a problem, you'll mention the problem to them, provide whatever documentation you have, and hopefully they're here. They can speak to what they envision this being. But that's really where the regulatory part comes in, is the PSC and how they are going to have hearings and understand whether this companies are going to have problems. That's part of my job at my company, is to figure out problems and make sure we don't have them anymore. And so this is not, hey, a one-off type of thing. This is repeated issues that these people are having, where they come before them and, hey, are you really a company we want here in Georgia installing these things? Are you fly by night? They kind of have the teeth in the measure. Does that answer that part of that question?
Yeah,
it'd be a website. I envision a website
about what it shall not apply to.
Yeah, I'll get to that part.
Yeah,
That's the first part, though.
So PSC is going to be the contact point.
That's right.
If a consumer it starts to have remorse or issues after the fact, that they're going to go to PSC.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not the case that they have remorse. Hopefully it's that's kind of a consumer issue. This is more like you look at it and you realize, I got the biggest system on a shed. Why is that the case? They were taking advantage of, you were taking advantage of fraud type of thing. We all have remorse on things we buy sometimes, and I don't want this to be that. But sure, if I have remorse, you could file it there. That's not something I would expect them to feel bad about. So if you were fraud, they sell those to you with a false bill of goods of what this is going to do. That's more in line with what they're going to do. As far as who it shall not apply to, so this applies to. Let's see. It does not apply to a person acting through officers. Real property. So this is basically, it doesn't apply to whenever you're making a sale of the house. You also sell you sell the property. You also sell the solar units going with it. That doesn't apply. I'm not selling a solar unit. I'm selling my home that has this on there. That's part one. Part two, transaction involving sale. Same thing. Part two. And then sell a lease of distributed generation that will be installed on a non-residential real property, so commercial.
This does not cover commercial.
No,
that's the way I read it.
Right, same.
Okay.
I believe, and we did that. I did that intentionally. I think if you're a business, you're kind of, you're kind of held to me a little bit higher standard as far as predatory people coming to sell your business. You should probably have a little bit better. You're not grandma sitting at home who got this sold to you, or someone. Who doesn't speak the language sold to you in an English contract, something like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Gullett, for bringing this great bill. This is a great consumer protection bill. Thank you for outlining the locations and the comments on these different egregious solar panel. Let me say this. There's 12 different situations that you've outlined here. Out of the 12, 10 of them are in my district.
Okay.
I know this is not a local bill.
Right.
This is a statewide bill, but
right.
It's a problem that is affecting certain communities than others.
Right.
So I want to appreciate you for outlining this for everyone to see. Now, this is just from the EMC side, correct? This is not from the.
So yes, this I just got from one EMC.
Power.
This is one EMC right here. Yeah.
Just one EMC out of.
I don't know how many there are, but yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
was
EMCs.
thinking it was
I think
40.
everyone in this room has a constituent who has this problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so this list we know is not inconclusive, but
That's right.
it is still very egregious. So I appreciate that. The only question I have is back on. When you're introducing the COA, the application time
Yeah.
and the certification time of the COA.
Sure.
There's no grandfather in, there's no waiver for
Right.
individual solar businesses that are currently in business.
That's right. Yeah, you have to go through it.
Is there a possibility that they would lose business?
So that's
For
not
30,
the so that's not the
30,
intention
60,
because there's
90
like a
days?
stalling period or whatever of this. So in talking to the PSC, I think they can feel like they can. I don't want to speak for them. I feel like they believe they can be ready to go in plenty of time for when January 1st comes. They get the rules and regs out there. They get the public hearing for the rules and regs. They can start accepting applications at that point. This doesn't go into effect until the beginning of the year. And so if they have those rules and regs there in plenty of time, which I think they believe they can, then it'll be a smooth sailing from January 1st. There's no pause of no installations while someone's getting approved. Now, if someone waits until January 1st to submit this, they're going to have a pause. That's because they can't do business until they get that COA. So it's on two sides. It's one for the PSC to get this done, and it's on the other side for the companies who are in the space to go and complete that application and get the ball rolling to get that done. There is I feel like it's a pretty expedited process. If no one complains, no one says anything, it's 60 days, and you have your decision to be done with it. If someone has a problem with you getting that license, it could be up to 120 days total. It just depends, on what's going on. It could be a complainant or the applicant. I can say as an applicant, I want a hearing from the PSC. It's going to take you 120 days to get that decision. If you don't do that, or no one has a complaint about you getting a license or COA, then it's 60 days or less.
Okay, and just a couple of follow-up questions.
Well, yeah, if I can just, and we're going to take this, but let me just say, I'm going to ask the PSC to come up and speak to it. So if you have more questions of the gentleman, that's fine. You're recognized to do those now. If they're kind of
Just
toward the
quickly.
process, then I'll come back to you for the PSC. So I'll leave it to you.
Okay, just quickly, the PSC, the PSC is coming up. I'll yield.
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am, and we'll come back
I'll
to you
yield.
when the PSC comes
Thank
up.
you.
Yes,
And I do want to you appreciate you said thank you for the help on the bill from me. I want to thank you for your help too. This is you had a bill last year, I had a bill last year. We kind of coordinated, try to get it into one bill as far best we could. It's a little different, but this is kind of where we are. So thank you for your help on this too.
Thank you.
Chairman Williams, Chairman of the Majority Caucus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Friendly question,
Sure.
Representative Gullett, or Chairman Gullett. So you're granting rulemaking authority through this legislation to the PSC, and so they'll be establishing the fees, application fees. Because
Yeah,
you
that's
do
right.
say, line 67, upon the file and completed application, the commission shall have 60 days. I'm assuming there'll be application fees associated with that.
Yeah, we didn't state, so I think in the rules and regs they'll
So
decide
the rules
that.
and regs, they establish that.
That's right.
And just, this is a matter of curiosity, what happens if the commission misses the 60 days? What kind of recourse does a citizen, a business
company would have?
Let's ask if
Okay.
the chair would also we'll ask
Sure.
the commission what their normal process for that, and
Sure.
then we'll come back to the author, and if we need to
That's
have
fine.
some corrective answer. That's a great question, Chairman Wilson. It's the old shot clock thing on the
Yeah,
cell
you gotta
towers is a bit what it's like. Great question.
I will say this is like kind of a COA light as far as they're not building a nuclear power plant. So the things that need to happen to get this, the company, do they have the fiduciary means? Do they have the background to do this? And have they been fraudsters before? That's kind of, all right, let's go.
I forget what Chairman Victor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just a question for clarification, and I apologize. This just dawned upon me.
Sure.
Is there a definition in Chapter 3 that covers all the articles that defines commission? I see commission utilized everywhere in this document, but in the article definitions, it is not defined as commission means the Georgia Public Service Commission.
Yeah, I have to go to Sean Marie on that one. I don't know.
It's defined for the entire title
section.
in chapter 1.
Okay.
The answer, because I'm not sure
Code
if,
section.
the attorney can be picked up, is the definition is defined for the entire article.
Okay.
Good
Thank
thought,
you.
though. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Oh, on line 64, you stated that the applicant should possess adequate capital
Yes.
and are financially viable.
Right.
How do you define that?
Yeah, that's the PSC to define. So that's what they'll do in the rules and regs. But the way I see that is they'll look at a 1 year background, 1 year financial background to look at this company. These systems are expensive. They're not. It's not a small thousands of dollars. It's tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes $75,000, $80,000 for these systems. So in order to install those and to have the warranties that goes along with that and everything that takes to fix those systems, they need a little capital. You can't be just Joseph Gullett with a personal checking account, I don't think, who's going to be able to feel like I can support the system of a whole business of installing these things. You got to have some capital there. But the PSC would decide that, what that looks like.
Further questions? Further questions? All right, we have no further questions. Allow me to interject, and then I'm going to call the PSC up.
Sure.
We have, but before you, I was looking through the bill and didn't see this. You all have the letter, the Hello Everyone letter.
Yeah.
Normally, things that are unsigned like that, I have Paul's to hand out for the committee. Somebody needs to own it, but
Yeah.
I'm going to just ask you for the record. You are representing that the facts
I am.
in here are as they are stated down in the double star.
Yes, I am. And we didn't do. She was.
That's
she
fine.
offered her name.
I just
haven't
wanted
always took it
because
off.
we have that requirement for
Yeah.
things that go before other committees. We
Yeah,
don't let people just drop stuff in and say he said, she said sort of things. And you're representing that Greystone and
I am.
if you will, the chain of testimony is good. So we'll
Yes,
put
I
that
am.
and carry that forward to Chairman Parsons if the bill moves forward. So I just wanted
Thank
to
you.
cover that for the subcommittee.
Yeah,
But
I just didn't want to make her vulnerable. So
no, that's fine. I mean, I just need somebody to own when material is.
Yes, I understand.
We normally have a process when material is distributed to subcommittees. Somebody has to kind of provide ownership. Like when you get things on your desk, there has to be a business card, on that.
Yeah, I'd
So,
vouch for that.
With that, if you don't object, we're going to ask the Public Service Commission to come up and entertain us with some of their wisdom for some of the questions you've heard. If you gentlemen, if there's no objection, we'll let you dispense with reintroducing yourself. If folks are watching, they can watch the earlier part of the tape to do that. But you heard sort of what was going on here with questions.
Yes, sir.
If you want the questions restated,
No.
we can do that, or you can provide us some information. Then we'll go back to Representative Thomas and Chairman Williams, and if they're not satisfied with the answers.
Okay, Chairman Williamson, the first.
Carry on.
Regarding fees, typically, like we take applications for telecommunications providers, and there's no application fee. Okay. We don't have a fee for that typically. And as far as if we miss a deadline, like on interconnection agreements for telecommunication companies, if we miss a deadline, they typically become active because we missed the deadline. And that's just by that's by our rules. So if we miss a deadline on an interconnection agreement, it would go into effect. So like I said, we'll address all this in the rules, but that's what we've done with our other industries that we have regulated up to this point on those two questions you had. And let's see.
And I think that the representative was going to ask a question. I don't know
Yes,
that we
ma'am.
have hers. If you recognize to ask that question.
Thank you, Chairman. The Public Service Commission meets once a month, right?
Twice a month.
Twice a
We
month.
have 4 meetings a month, 2 committees and 2 administrative sessions. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if a solar company put in an application after it's met, that could be an additional 30 days before the application is processed?
No, ma'am. The 60 days that we have in the bill took into consideration when the commission meets.
Okay.
So what'll happen, they'll file an application. We'll have an individual do a technical and financial review of the information they provide as long as it's complete. It does say completed application. So if everything's complete and is there, then within that 60 days, we'll review that information, make sure it's accurate, they meet the standards that we outline in our rules that will be promulgated, and then that'll give the commission time to have it on a committee meeting and then vote on an administrative session within that 60-day period.
Okay, and that last question was, if the solar company was denied, is there any appeal?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. There's a right for appeal that if they are denied, then within 30 days of that denial, they can file a request or an appeal for reconsideration of that decision. And then if they file that, then we have 60 days from when they file that request for that appeal to actually have a hearing on their appeal. And then from that hearing, we have another 30 days to issue a decision on their appeal.
Thank you.
That's line 85.
85. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
And I think
Representative Thomas. Was it Chief?
The other Representative Thomas.
Yeah, we have Thomas squared, ladies and gentlemen.
I actually want to hop off of Representative. I just have to say Gabe because I can't see your last name. Yeah, and we'll. My question has to do with how are. Here's what I want. I don't want bad actors. Okay,
Yes,
right? We don't. Nobody wants that. It's not good for anybody. But I also don't want to set unnecessary barriers from startup businesses to get in the market, and that's kind of where I'm getting a little, I guess, lost in the weeds here. How can you guys make sure that good people that want to get into this business have access to get into it if you require a year's worth of financial? I'm getting a little confused. So if you could just clarify for me, that'd be great.
we haven't decided, because that's something we'll do when we promulgate the rules. And the way our rulemaking will work, we'll make a recommendation. We'll put it in a rule. We'll send it out, and if the industry will then get back to us on recommendations, we'll coordinate with them on those, take their suggestions, and we'll work. I'm not a financial expert, but we have bonds and different things like that we require companies to have that are serving customers to protect customers. Not saying that's the instrument we'll use, but it is an example of in our past application processes where we've used bonds and those kind of financial instruments in the past. So as we go through our rulemaking process, that's what we'll determine. And as these rules are promulgated, we'll send them out. They'll come over here to each chairman of each respective committee in the Senate and the House. They'll go out to the industry, and if there's any concerns, they can express their concerns, and then we can amend our rules, send them out again. So that's why the representative was talking about, we would like to get this done quickly because we don't want anybody to be delayed. We don't want to be a impediment to people getting their work done. So the people who want to stay in business and be ready January 1, we want to have these out early so that we can start the application process, get the reviews done, have those people certificated and ready to hit the ground running on the 1st of January.
So, just one more follow-up question, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. So when Representative Gullett made a clear point that it was some of these systems are very expensive, right? And they vary in range $10,000 to $100,000. A lot of times, a startup's not going to be able to get into $100,000, but they might be able to install $10,000 systems. Is that something that you're going to kind of make sure that there's a entry path or entry way into this? Because not sometimes I call it sweat equity. Sometimes you got to build a little sweat equity to get the money to be able to do the bigger systems. So I just need some reassurance that's something you're going to keep in mind.
Well, our rules will take into account all those scenarios.
Okay.
Yeah, we're working, as you can see in here, it's got us, we shall consult with the solar industry. You see that, and we will do that. I mean, it's a new area for us as far as in this kind of regulation. We do work with solar on our integrated resource plan and those kind of things, but it's a new area for us as well. So we'll be working and coordinating with them. Good faith.
So, I'm going to do one more, I promise, and I'm done after this.
Don't worry, you're just everybody. It's Representative Thomas who will be buying dinner later.
I'm holding a lot of people from getting home.
Please continue.
So when you go out to industry, there's going to be established players that are already there, and I just want to make sure that they're not setting bars for future competition coming into the market either. That's my only concern with that. It's really just more of a statement than a question.
Yes,
so just keep that in mind.
Yes, sir.
And I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. No, and I'm joking. Everyone on the subcommittee and Chairman Parsons, when we get to a full committee, will tell you he wants everyone to ask their questions and get it done. If I might follow up, and then we have a question from Representative Okoye. Shouldn't it be that this process, if you get to have that COA, wouldn't it be a situation where a smaller company now has a better opportunity to compete with a bigger company because you can go, look, I'm not a fly-by-night order. You don't have to worry. I've just seen some places out in everything from the replacement windows to the vinyl siding business. Everybody goes with the folks that can buy the TV commercials. And if you have somebody out, just a startup that's just trying to get going, they may be just as good as the big folks, but sometimes people won't do business with them because you can't be assured they've been checked out. So to your point, if they are checked out and they have this certificate, it in theory should make startups competitive
Yes, sir.
I mean, it could. I will say it's sort of a gold star, if you will, a Better Business PSC approved, if you will, on your
Yes, sir.
contract if you go out there.
Yes,
So,
'cause-
in we would hope that is. I believe that's what the gentleman and the lady are looking for to happen. Representative Okoye.
Oh, well, Representative Thomas, shall we call you one or two? He has actually, my concern was about qualifications for people who want to enter into that business.
Yes, sir.
And who are reputable and can do a great job. So keep them in mind. And if some of them that are big companies are not doing a good job, demote them.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been demoted. Look over there. Congratulations. You have been selected to Page. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any further questions? Chairman Williamson.
I would just do a quick question. In general, does the commission have, I know you regulate a lot in Georgia, but do you have experience on regulating relatively smaller contractors such as the ones we're describing here?
Well, with telecommunications companies, what will be it'll be a little new for us, but we're going to, acquire the staff and the training we need to work in this area. So yes, sir. We've worked with smaller companies.
I would assume that, just out of curiosity, it's in the rules and regs for those telecommunications companies. You mentioned bonding, and that was going to be one of my questions.
Yes,
Are those some, performance bonds or just fidelity bonds? Or?
Yes, sir. To protect the customers. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Then, do you require insurance?
I'd have to check.
certificates
I'll
as
check
well?
and get back to you on that for sure. But I believe we do. But I'll have to look at the application process.
Just to follow up, I do have sympathy for barriers to entry. People have to be able to get into business, but at the same time, this is some egregious activities are going on, so it's got to be a balance between small businesses being able to grow, start, and all that, but protect the consumers at the same time. So,
yes, sir.
I just want to keep to the two representatives' points. We need to keep an eye on being able to make it easy for qualifying small businesses to get in this space.
Yes, sir.
And I have a question of you, and I hesitate to ask it from the years down here, but I mean you're sitting before us representing. You can take this on. I've never seen an organization body in state government say they could take new work on, and there wasn't going to be a budgetary line.
Well,
and
no,
I'm being that's a bit of a.
I think my chairman's watching, so let me clear it up. I did not say we weren't going to ask.
No, and I'm being honest. I mean that's a bit of a joke.
Yes, sir.
But it's also a very serious question.
Yes,
I think it's fair that if this moves forward, if Chairman Parsons moves this forward and it becomes law, that it is very important that if you need adequate staff to turn those things in 30, 60, and the appeals in 90 days, in order to do it, that we don't perform. So. I just for the subcommittee to know and the big committee to know that if we need to if we put our name by this as they say in rules, that we need to be prepared to work in good faith with you all, with Chairman Tillery and Chairman Hatchett in the appropriations process, and your chairman at PSC in their request to properly do it, because many times it's easy for us to write checks you all have to cash, and if we're doing this for the consumers, I just felt like it needed to be broached. So that subject is.
Thank you, Chairman.
I
agree wholeheartly with you.
Number 5 over there. I'm not sure which one is. Yes, Representative Lismore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering on line 99 if we should have a concern. The last sentence says, basically you're requiring the applicant to remain financially solvent and also have technical capabilities.
Yes,
but the last sentence says it's a continuing obligation and may be reviewed by the commission at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be concerned about someone just coming in to the applicant and saying, hey, let me take a look at your books to make sure that you are still compliant?
Basically, what we do now with many of our certificates is you have compliance filings that we can set them up. Some are set up on quarterly, semi-annually, and annual basis. So we would set up a system, I would imagine, our rules that we would determine would be best for you to prove that you continue to have what you had when you originally applied, so that we can make sure to protect the consumers.
So this where it says maybe reviewed at any time means that you're going to go in and sit down and
They actually could, we could just ask for paperwork like we do on the original application. They would submit paperwork that we will have a compliance filing. We say annually, you need to send in your annual compliance filings, and we can verify the information again, just like we did in the original application process.
And to the lady's question further, the law says at any time, their rules and regs would be set forth and then go through, I guess this would go through a public period just like
Oh,
any
yes, sir.
other.
Yes,
any
sir.
other
Okay.
road. So those rules and regs would be where they would further define that. If we further define it in law and then find out it's not working, we have to come back and do it.
Yeah.
Rules and regs, they have a bit of flexibility, but still very much a public process for adopting the rules.
Oh, yes,
and
sir.
regs.
It's all public.
I believe Chairman Parsons is involved in the rules and regs.
He will be sent a
the
copy
process.
from Legislative Council of all our proposed rules.
The last question I have of you, and the lady again piqued this in my mind, is there anything in here, Representative, that speaks to full disclosure of the disposal of the units at the end of their lifetime? People are putting these on their roofs, roofs today, roofs. I'm not sure how one does that, but they're putting them on their houses and places of business. And in this case, I guess business is not covered, but to the disposal. If they're going and entering into a contract where they're leasing them, they actually don't own the units, but they're leasing at the end of the lease. Is it required for a disclosure here of who's responsible for taking them down? You don't have to look at it. Let's just make sure as you promulgate your rules that we do that, because there's also issues with disposals. We're getting to solar panels that have been in place around the country. They have some, in some cases, some pretty nasty stuff. They have some isms and iliums and different kind of heavy metals in there that one can't just take off and put in the recycle bin. So I think that's important for people that are putting them up to know that at some point in the process that's going to have to be they're going to have to deal with that. So no. You have one more, or no? We're done. Yeah. Okay. No further questions. No further questions of you. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to leave us with?
No, sir. Thank you,
Okay,
Chairman.
if there are no further questions, Representative, did you have anything you want to finish? Sorry, you can just do it from sitting right there if you pull that mic over and press the button.
You're talking about final thoughts, is that what you're
Yes,
asking?
sir.
No, I mean, I think this really is an important thing. It's something that that the full committee, I don't remember the subcommittee, the full committee addressed last year, not as in depth, but something that we know is important. We let a year pass, and more bad actors kind of came. So I do think it's important that we actually do something this year to help those folks. Because again, I believe that we could find constituents in every person's district in here, multiple constituents who've had a bad experience, a lot of good experiences, but the bad ones we're trying to weed out. So ask for your favorable consideration. Happy to be around after this for questions and in the future for questions.
Thank you. Normally we would take at least 2 looks at a bill of this size at subcommittee, but given the fact that this was entertained, I know we have some members of the subcommittee that didn't entertain it last year, but given the fact we've had this hearing today, it has been entertained at full committee, and we'll get an opportunity to do it again between that at full committee. I would waive that process. It's not a rule, but I would waive our procedure on that and allow for action this if the committee so wills on House Bill 73 LC 365433S. If the subcommittee wishes to take action, I would take a motion at this time. I have a motion do pass and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, now is the time for that. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to thank you for bringing this. I'm originally from New Orleans, and after Hurricane Katrina, this was a huge problem. Every one of my family members has solar panels on their roofs. None of them work. I have one cousin that got it to work, and the only way she got it to work is she bought a $16,000 Tesla battery. So if we had something like this in New Orleans, maybe they wouldn't be in the situation. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Further discussion. Motion is to move this forward with a do pass recommendation to full council. Any further discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The motion carries. It moves forward to full committee. LC 365433S HB 73 to full committee with a do pass recommendation. If there's no further business before the subcommittee, You want me to announce the full committee meeting? You want me to announce full committee meeting? What time is that? It's Tuesday? 3 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, just give me just a second here. Come back to order, please. For Chairman Parsons, I would like to announce that the EUT full committee will meet next Tuesday at 3 o'clock in this room. Next Tuesday at 3 o'clock in this room. If there's no further business for the subcommittee, we'll stand adjourned without objection. And without objection, we are adjourned.